It pisses me off that I'm doing videos like this, in this day and age with gaming having a rich history of do's and don'ts, but it seems like even the best seem to lose their edge. Nothing truly beats time, as after a certain period everything and everyone changes. I do have to get this out of the system cause I'm walking around my house angry due to these thoughts turning my brain into a schizophrenic pinball map. Don't want my girl or my dogs to think that I'm angry with them, because my anger and disappointment is directed towards From Software and way more so the media outlets that are dishonest, pathetic, slimy bastards that can be trusted about as far as you can throw them. As you might have gathered from the thumbnail, it's about the new best ever made DLC from Elden Ring. Full review is gonna come once I'm done with the DLC, but I've played enough to know that this is far from a 10 out of 10 or even 9 out of 10 DLC. So-called journalists are lying to you, to coddle your feelings and to suck up to From Software and the fans so that they get early access to their future games because they have a backbone the size of a pencil, while retaining the fans that won't feel good journalism. I swear it seems like most of these big media outlets have been given a script that needs to be closely followed. 10 out of 10, best DLC ever, game of the year, masterpiece. There are only two ways to look at such reviews and reviewers. They are either liars, or they have no clue how to judge games fairly due to their lack of experience or education on the matter. Well, I'm not gonna coddle anyone's feelings, cause feelings are way overrated. You can trust feelings as much as you can trust any politician, meaning you can't. Feelings change as the wind blows, and these journals are capitalizing on poor saps that have emotional control of a toddler. Unfortunately, we live in a world where a lot of these poor saps are validating their lives through companies, brands, games, so that if someone says something negative, it's like they are attacking them directly. It's pathetic, is what it is. Here is a cold hard truth that doesn't care about anyone's feelings. Shadow of the Erdtree, from what I've played so far, is decent and at best good. Not even close to a masterpiece, because From Software fucked up. Anyone that has any experience with From Software or games in general can easily tell you that. If you can't handle it, then you have much bigger problems than your favorite game not being as good as you think it is. Life is gonna make sure to show you that. There is no correlation between liking a product and the actual quality of that product. You can like bad and mediocre games. You can also not have fun or enjoy great games. Liking or not liking is entirely subjective due to each individual's preference. Quality of the games, on the other hand, can be objectively measured to a degree. Is the game worth it price-wise is, on the other hand, entirely subjective. Some people think that longevity increases value, some think that only quality matters, some think that graphical fidelity and presentation should dictate the price. I don't think there is an objective way to say if a game is worth it to you and how much would be the realistic price. In the end, what gets you excited more is what dictates the price. That's why I try to not mention in the reviews whether you should buy it, wait it out or whatever. If I did in any of the reviews, then I made a mistake. What can you do? I'm a YouTuber, for fuck's sake, not a god. I make mistakes, same as everyone, and grow with that experience. Unlike my hair that fucked off somewhere a long time ago. Goddamn Chernobyl generation. Then again, if there are gods, I'd say they screwed up more than I could in 100 lifetimes, but I digress. From Software's games are some of my favorite of all time. I adore them ever since the first Dark Souls, which was the first I tried. I'm a fan, but not a blind, emotionally handicapped fan. I'm aware that Elden Ring is not a masterpiece. It never was and it never will be. Though I thought that From Software would take into account mistakes of ER and improve it in the DLC. One complaint for the original was that the open world has too much copy-paste content and bosses, which is true. I didn't mind it that much, to be honest, but realistically, if that reused content wasn't in the game, it wouldn't hurt Elden Ring at all. I think From Software did an incredible job with the open world of Elden Ring because they managed to retain that same atmosphere, style and vibe from Dark Souls. That is an amazing achievement, to turn linear game into an open world and not lose what made the linear ones so great. DLC, from what I've seen so far, improves open world design even more. It's incredible. However, where From Software really screwed up in Elden Ring is the difficulty and enemy design, especially bosses later in the game. Disappointing considering that great boss designs was a staple of theirs. It was exciting as heck battling most of them, but in Elden Ring that changed. Some say that it all started with Dark Souls 3 DLC, but can't confirm or deny it since I didn't play those DLCs. Problem is that in this DLC they doubled down on their Elden Ring design and made it even worse. Basically anything kills you in 2 shots even with 60 vigor. Basic soldier enemies too, not just the bosses. They have introduced some Scaramucci fragments or whatever the name is that can be found throughout the world that lowers damage received and increases damage dealt. It is there to battle the 2-shot kill mechanic. It's optional if player wants to utilize that, but to be honest I have upgraded my character 6 times with it and didn't notice major differences. Those fragments are additional layer that allows players to control the difficulty of the DLC to a degree. This system becomes a problem on its own when bad boss designs come into the picture, because to have any fun it becomes almost mandatory to farm fragments to give yourself a chance to enjoy the DLC. That limits your open world experience and works against the be free and do your own thing style that the open world design encourages. It now becomes almost a mandatory thing to search for these fragments if you don't want to deal with the cheap boss and enemy designs to a point of extreme annoyance. I understand that fragments and significantly increased damage done by the enemies is there to slow down OP builds from the original to a degree. But that is a terrible way to go about it, because it doesn't fix the original issue, which is the enemy design, and instead doubles down on it while adding collectible items that should be searched for before going for the bosses. Fragments end up slowing the progression and limiting the freedom of choice due to lowering and increasing the effectiveness of the build. It's not a bad system on its own, but it would serve the game far better if the difficulty and enemy design was good. Unfortunately, with From Software going mental with the difficulty design in the DLC, fragment system works against the game, as explained earlier. What is the problem with the difficulty design? Well, combine late game boss aggression from the original with significantly higher damage output. They have done fuck all to improve the worst thing about Elden Ring. Every boss fight plays out the same. You are like Italy in football in the 90s and early 2000s. Defend for 30 minutes until an opening is created to capitalize on it. There is no thought behind these designs. Bosses cheat in every conceivable way. Black Gaolknight being the best example. Input reading, insane recovery times, no stamina limits, no mana limits, attacks track way too much, stupid fast turn rate and damage that is just ridiculous. Great bosses mechanically and methodically are designed within the margins of the existing rule set, not outside of it, and this is where ER and its DLC fail miserably. It's not about the difficulty level, because it is about how difficult the design is done. I love a good challenge, but this isn't good. It's a cheaply designed challenge that gives no incentive to play like I would want to, and that is one-on-one without the summons. I stopped caring about that for the first time ever in a From Software game. 90% From Software games bosses are beaten solo, but in Elden Ring I couldn't give a fuck about challenging myself that way, because if enemies don't follow the rule set to a degree, there is no incentive for me to do it as well. You want me to use summons? I will. Wanna know how the fight ends up looking? Well, here is an example. Fun, right? This is what I expect from companies getting into the Souls genre and trying to emulate From Software boss design to agree and then failing miserably due to lack of experience. Oh, by the way, new thing is that 2 out of 4 bosses that are beaten so far use 3 different elemental attacks. Icing on the cake, right? Aesthetically it looks great, especially when Rellana starts wielding Frost and Fire swords. It's epic. Mechanically though, it is a weak idea if more than one boss can do that, because it becomes a cheap thing. If one boss in the whole game or DLC can do that, then it becomes a special type of a challenge. But if more than one does it, then it's just a bad idea as it loses uniqueness. There is that thing also about get good. I'm gonna contain myself and not share what I think about those oxygen wasters. Getting better in the game doesn't mean that suddenly terrible boss designs are not there. One and the other are not connected at all. You got really good and you can defeat bosses with no fragments and summons. Guess what? Most people can do that with enough time spent on the boss. Thing is that some don't like to waste time with bad designs just to be able to say that they have done it solo. Kudos for sticking with it and respect for learning the bosses to a high level, but that doesn't invalidate bad difficulty and enemy designs. I almost never played in From Software games OP builds, except for the last part of Elden Ring. I like to try simple and unique stuff if possible rather than going for the OP. Big part of From Software games is the challenge. Unfortunately, they as a company are not good at balancing their games, but at least before you could play through it all with whatever crappy build we wanted. Less OP the build was, the better we had to become in the game to progress. Difference is that before, designs in place offered more freedom to play without severely punishing the player. That freedom is almost non-existing in the DLC. Dodging 10 attacks in a row just to hit once or twice and then bosses recovering instantly to return damage as fast as possible while going from one long flailing combo to another doesn't leave much room to operate if playing 1 versus 1. I understand that they have moved towards summons in Elden Ring, but who made that decision? That was a terrible decision to make, because it seems like they have just given up on good and well thought out boss designs with summons becoming an excuse for it. Well, now you have summons, so don't have to 1 versus 1. We didn't have to 1 versus 1 before too, but we wanted to, because it was an exciting thing to do, and then if failing for days, there was an option to say, screw it all and let's take the help from the gold summon. Unfortunately, difficulty in the enemy design is so cheap at the moment that I'm struggling to even care about how the boss is going to be defeated. Also, I got no satisfaction in beating almost any of the ER and DLC bosses because of all the options to reduce the cheap difficulty designs in a way that feels cheap on my end. So cheap versus cheap. I never liked seeing players use OP stuff before in From Software games, even though it is developers' fault for the lack of balancing. But now I do it too for the first time and encourage others to do it too, so that the experience is not ruined to a high degree. Sticking with being fair in Elden Ring and the DLC is going to lead to extreme levels of eye rolling and annoyance. I'm not saying there is no satisfaction in beating these cheap bosses 1 versus 1 fairly, because there is, but road to that point can be more infuriating than ever. First time to a point of not wanting to continue, which is a feeling I've never had before. Maybe only with Smelter Demon, but that's it. Also, they did nothing to improve finishing and backstab animations that are on the level of a new indie Souls game that has a budget of $2. It's so disappointing. Look, I love From Software's games, but while managing to surprise still with amazing things like switching from linear to open world in a great way, some of the core elements seem to be going downhill in a bad way. Has From Software peaked? Seems to me like they have. Bloodborne could have been their peak. Hopefully it isn't. Hard to predict the future, but lack of excitement I have with Elden Ring and the DLC is not a good sign, which is down to bad balancing and cheap difficulty designs. Not the world building and lore, because that is still fantastic. Anyway, needed to vent a bit. Hopefully you understand. It's one of my favorite gaming developers, losing a plot in certain aspects, and it hurts a bit. Just don't trust so-called journalists. I'm sure there are great reviewers out there, and I would love to recommend some, but I don't watch gaming content creators at all. So if you have channels to recommend to viewers that want more honesty, let them know in the comment section. Apologies for promoting this, but I have Patreon and Subscribestar links in the description where I do reactions to mostly newly announced games. Don't like promoting that stuff, but I'm at the point where I have to, so apologies for that. Thanks for watching and see you soon.